Good afternoon everyone. Asahifuji Seiya, born Seiya Aomori on July 6, 1960, is a Japanese former professional sumo wrestler from Aomori. He joined professional sumo in 1981, reaching the top Mikuchi division just 2 years later. He reached the second highest rank of Ozeki in 1987 and became the 63rd Yokozuna in the history of the sport in 1990 at the age of 30. He won 4 tournaments and was a runner-up on 9 other occasions. He retired in 1992 and is now the head coach of Asahifuji stable. As a coach he has produced 2 Yokozuna himself, Haruma Fuji and Teruyuno Fuji. Click on the bell. He was born in the fishing town of Kizukuri in Nishitsugaru district. His father, who worked as an electrician, was a keen amateur sumo enthusiast and vice president of the Prefectural Sumo Federation. He was determined to see his son succeed in sumo and even built a dojo in the garden for him to practice. Asahifuji also did well at sumo at school, finishing 3rd in a national schoolboy competition, and later winning the West Japan Student Newcomers Tournament while studying at Kinki University. However, tiring of the never-ending training, he gave up sumo for a while and spent his time fishing. Eventually an acquaintance of his father introduced him to Oshima Oyakata, former Ozeki Asahifuji, who had recently opened his own heiya or stable of wrestlers, Oshima Stable. Early sumo career. Asahifuji made his professional debut in January 1981. He was already 20 years old, considerably older than most new recruits who tend to be 15 or 16. However, because of his amateur sumo experience he was able to work his way up the ranks very quickly and won tournament championships in the Jonakuchi, Sandan and Makushita divisions with perfect records. He reached the second highest Juryo division after only 8 tournaments, a record that stood unbeaten until 2008. He was promoted to the top Mikuchi division in March 1983. He won his first special prize for fighting spirit in the November 1984 tournament, where he finished runner-up. He reached sekawake rank for the first time in January 1986, after regular training sessions at Takasago Stable, where he knew Asashio from his university days. He began to develop a more rounded technique, and after 3 double-figure records he was promoted to sumo's second highest rank of Ozeki after the September 1987 tournament. Ozeki. In January 1988 Asahifuji won his first top division tournament championship, which was also the first for the Tatsunami Asahifuji Ishihaman or group of stables in nearly 20 years. In 1989 he won 40 out of a possible 45 bouts in the first 3 championships of the year and came very close to promotion to the highest rank of Yokozuna, but he was defeated by Yokozuna Hakatumi in playoffs in both January and May 1989. His 13-2 record in May was his 5th consecutive runner-up performance, and his 7th overall, but he had been unable to win 2 tournaments in a row, regarded by the Japan Sumo Association as the minimum requirement for Yokozuna promotion after the embarrassment of Futahiguro's brief tenure at sumo tops rank. After managing only 8-7 in the following tournament in July, Asahifuji endured a long slump. This was partly caused by long-standing pancreatic trouble, which had first been diagnosed in 1984 and had also afflicted his stablemaster during his active days. After a string of mediocre 8-7 and 9-6 scores it seemed Asahifuji would finish his career as an Ozeki. However, by mid-1990 his health began to improve, and after encouragement from his stablemaster, who reminded him that he would soon turn 30 years of age and was down to his last chance, he won consecutive championships in May and July 1990. He scored 14-1 in both tournaments, securing his Yokozuna promotion on the final day in July by defeating Yokozuna Chiyano Fuji for only the 5th time in 28 meetings. Let's subscribe to the channel. Asahifuji began his Yokozuna career with 12 straight wins in the September 1990 tournament, but he lost to Kirishima on day 13 and was defeated by Hakatumi in the championship deciding bout on the final day. In November 1990 he finished runner-up again, to Chiyano Fuji. In January and March 1991 he posted reasonable scores of 11-4 but was never really in contention for the championship in either tournament, although he did have a memorable win over the young rising star Taka Haneda in March. 3. He had to wait until May 1991 for his first title as a Yokozuna, when he defeated Kanishiki twice on the last day, once in their regulation match and once in the playoff, to finish with a 14-1 record. This was to prove Asahifuji's only tournament championship as a Yokozuna. As the rest of his career was dogged by illness and injury, he managed only a bare majority of 8-7 in July 1991, the last tournament he was to complete. He pulled out of the September 1991 tournament with an injured shoulder on the 6th day, and hampered by the return of his old pancreatic problems missed the November 1991 tournament altogether. He returned in January 1992 but after losing his opening 3 bouts to Akebono, his nemesis Kanoshima, for the 5th time in a row, and finally Waka Haneda, he announced his retirement at the age of 31. Asahifuji's 3-bout losing streak from the opening day was equal to the worst ever for a Yokozuna in the 15-day era until Kaisen Azato lost his first 4 bouts in November 2018. He gave the worsening condition of his pancreas as the reason for his retirement. His Danpatsushiki or retirement ceremony was held in September 1992. There were no active Yokozuna at the time, so he was unable to follow the tradition of having one serve as his Takemoki and Tsurai for the event. Asahifuji has remained in the sumo world as a coach. He had married a niece of the former Kasugayama Oyakata, former Megashira Oniburi, in 1988, and seemed set to revive Kasugayama's stable, too. But instead he took over Ajagawa's stable in 1993 due to the poor health of the previous incumbent, former Sekirake Matsuarashi. The first top division wrestler he produced was a Minashiki in 2000, who reached the Sekirake rank in 2007, a Minashiki's brother Asahifuji, who retired in 2011 after a match-fixing scandal, was also briefly a top-division wrestler. In November 2007 Asahifuji acquired the prestigious Izugahama Elder name and renamed his stable Izugahama Stable. The Ajagawa name was acquired by a Minashiki and was loaned to Shikishima of Mishingaku Stable until July 2012, when Shikishima switched to the Irake's name. 4-5. He has also worked as a judge at tournament matches. Asahifuji's greatest success as a trainer came first with Haruma Fuji, who he recruited in 2001 and who initially fought under the Shikona of Ame. Haruma Fuji reached the second highest rank of Ozeki in November 2008 and won his first top division championship in May 2009. Haruma Fuji took his second championship in July 2011, the same tournament in which Takara Fuji, like Asahifuji, a Kinki University graduate, made his top division debut. Haruma Fuji reached Juryo in 2012, and in September of that year Haruma Fuji was promoted to Yokozuna following 2 consecutive 15-0 championships. Izugahama had motivated Haruma Fuji by telling him before his July 2011 championship, "If you are content with being Ozeki then it is all over. You do not become a Yokozuna just by wanting to be a Yokozuna." 6. Like Asahifuji, Haruma Fuji performed the Yokozuna ring entering ceremony or Dohyo in the Shiranui style. 7. He has continued to produce top wrestlers. with Takarafuji reaching Kamishibai rank and Terunofuji, inherited from the defunct Magaki stable, being promoted to Ozeki, both in 2015. Terunofuji fell to the Jonadan division through injury in 2019. Isagahama refused to accept Terunofuji's request to be allowed to retire, and his faith was rewarded when Terunofuji staged a spectacular comeback and reached the Yokozuna rank in July 2021. He submitted Harumafuji's retirement papers to the Sumo Association on November 29, 2017 after the Yokozuna took responsibility for an assault on fellow Mongolian Takanoi Iwa in a Tottori restaurant and bar the previous month. At a subsequent news conference, Isagahama shed tears as he told reporters, "I've watched him grow since he was 16 and have never seen or heard of him being violent before. I can't imagine why it happened." 8. At a meeting on December 20, 2017, the Sumo Association accepted Isagahama's resignation as a director. 9. He was moved to the Competition Inspection Committee as a deputy chairman. He returned to the board of directors in 2020 as head of the judging department.